Morehouse Fly Box. Today we're going to tie a Catskill classic, the Quill Gordon Wet. It is probably the most effective Catskill wet that I have tied and fished. It's remained in my box ever since I first tied it many years ago, and that was long after it had built a lineage for itself as it is. It still continues to do well every year for me, and it remains in my box. And with spring approaching, March and April are the witching months for this pattern. Let's go over how to tie it. Start out with a size 14 standard nymph hook, 2x long, and 8/0 black uni thread. And start our thread. Build the base back to about the point of the barb. And first material we're going to use is lemon barred wood duck. Take a substantial group of that. Measure it at shank length, and we're going to tie it in right there at the point of the barb. Now, I differ from some people. I know the classic route to tying this pattern is to wrap over those butts. I like a thin abdomen, so I keep it as thin as possible. Come back and tighten up that tail just a bit. There we go. Then I bring my thread up to about 2 eye lengths behind the eye. And at that point we're going to tie in our body material, which is stripped peacock herl. And we're going to tie that in on the side of the hook and wrap back over. I'm going to bring that back to the point of the tail. And then when we bring our thread forward, hang on here, I've got a little bit of a divot. I like to build it up with just thread. I'm just going to even the body out a little bit. What I've found is if I tie over the quills or the feather butts, I tend to get a little bit thicker than I want to be. And then the next step at this point is a little dab of Sally Hansen's over that thread base. Not a lot, just a little bit on top. And you're going to bring your quill forward. It's going to be one in front of the other. Try and keep it as tight as possible. I don't lose any sleep over whether or not it's perfect. We have a dark base. You're never going to see it. Fish is never going to see it. Although I like to keep it as uniform as possible. So try and keep as few gaps as possible. It just gives a prettier abdomen. I prefer to tie this in by hand. It It usually ends up a little bit nicer for me that way. And with hackle pliers, and at that point, tie off. And wrap down that butt. Now the fact that I put Sally Hansen's under it alleviates the need to put anything over top of it. The next material you're going to tie in is a done hen hackle. I prepare my hen hackles a little bit differently for this pattern and for most soft hackles. I start off with the quill. I strip the side that is towards the direction that I'm wrapping down, and I tie in butt first with the stem of the quill. So I don't tie this in the traditional fashion, but it does work quite well for me. We're going to tie that in, and like I said, the strip side, looks like I missed a little bit of that quill. We're going to wrap 3 turns, one tight in front of the other, and 3. Not too heavy of a collar. And a few turns to secure it. And then what I like to do is sweep it back and come back into that feather a couple turns just to get it started back the way I want it. Next material you're going to tie in is another section of lemon wood duck. This will be a little bit heavier than the tail. And I'm going to measure this to where I want the wing to extend to the bend of the hook, not just the shank length, but the bend of the hook. And then I'm going to sweep back where I can see the eye, pinch wrap, make sure I'm centered, and I tied that in a little long, so we're going to adjust that. Don't be afraid to change. Unwrap it if you see you're out of proportion. And we'll try that again. Sweep it back. And that's a little bit better. And then trim your butts. And build your head. As you build the head, you'll push things back a little bit more. Don't go too large with the head. And then a quick whip finish. Apologize for a little bit of a tremor there. And then one more small dab of Sally Hansen's. Just a little drop on top. Let that soak in. And make sure I don't have any wild hackles trapped. And there it is, the Quill Gordon. Very effective spring pattern. Comes into its own every year. I have to refill my bin every winter. Don't rule out those classic patterns. This is one that will take you year to year. Hope it adds to your box. Good luck. See you on the water.